Good evening, folks. Hajim Zero here, back with another TV review. This is The Walking Dead season 3, and I'm gonna dive right in. Pretty much like I said on the last video of season 2 with Rick and the rest of the survivors. This is when this part of the story of the series really is like the first beginning of a lot of change, and we see the transition real quickly right in the first episode. Your first two episodes actually. And saying this with the character of Rick, he officially changed when he had killed Shane. And he pretty much knew what he had to do to survive. I think he somewhat did change in the beginning a little bit when the first people he killed were in the bar, but I think it was a full staple when he killed Shane, his best friend, because that's someone you personally knew. Just like when he had killed Sophia, it was kind of funny how you know Shane had called Rick weak, but he still had the balls enough to do what needed to be done, even though it was a child. Yeah, and when he was talking all that smack about clearing the barn and all that, but getting on over that factor, this was somewhat of a semi. Well, I ain't gonna say that because that does happen much later. I ain't gonna say the word, but you're definitely gonna hear it when we get to season 4. But this is the season where I think most of the major characters, a few, like more than two, actually die. Rick's wife dies. One of the minor characters, T Dog, kind of dies, but he still somewhat had a little bit of a purpose because he was the one that indirectly said that saved Glenn. And Daryl's brother, he dies, Merle, and it was kind of messed up because I did have empathy for him after what he did, and he kind of still failed, and no one knew what he had did. Even his brother didn't know, and yeah, Milton, one of the governors. The governor's actually one of the main villains. He's the one with the eye patch. He his companionated friend Milton, who he also knew before the whole world went to crap. He also dies too. And the cool thing about Milton, which I personally didn't know because I found out that I had this condition as well. He he has autism, and I think they said someone had said at one point it was Asperger syndrome, but other sources said it really wasn't that. But at the same time, I'm saying that because I found out I had it like eons ago, and his I really couldn't tell watching the show. It fooled me completely. I didn't know until it I heard behind the scenes. It wasn't stated in the show itself. So it's little things like that emphasizes certain things with a character. Another thing, like pretty much for example, like with Sasha, they were saying like behind the scenes with her character, she was a firefighter, but it was never stated in the show or even mentioned. So it was kind of funny how, that had, was said, but it was never officially, clarified. Same thing with Milton's autism. You can just tell by the way he acts, looking get back at it again, he has awkward. They were saying one particular scene he had an awkward way of answering something, but I really couldn't tell personally because he sounded like whatever the question was being asked, he really didn't know it. So it's pretty much that. A couple new characters were introduced. Like I said, Tasha and Sasha, Tyreese, and Judith are like the three main ones that are going to keep going season on. And of course, the governor and Michael Rooker's character, Merle, makes a return. And I know it was something I was about to say with the three major characters. Oh well, three new major characters coming into the show, but or it could have been them leaving, but I think I just excuse me, already said it. But yeah, they did some changes to this from the comic book, of course. Most of it pretty much stayed the same. One of the major differences is the way Laurie died and when she had died. So in the comic book, if remember what I said about the condominium. She actually died when the government attacked the prison for the last time, and when they were running, she gets shot holding Judith in the back with a shotgun, and spoiler alert, Judith dies too. So yeah, I could have stated that already. They changed it on here where Carl, I think it was either Carl or Maggie, had to do a C-section, and Carl had shot her to put her down anyway. And I think that was better because they were going for more of an emotional beat versus Rick having to do it, because he does loses his mind and then the walker eats the rest of her body. But it was more of an emotional toll for Carl. So I kind of see what they did there on that, and you could have walked away with it with many different levels. And another thing they had changed, how they introduced the governor, and it was really a nice change. The character of Andrea, she got separated by the group in season 2, and then Michonne, that's the chick with the samurai sword with the dreadlocks, another new major character, had came in and saved her, and then they found Woodbury and the governor having his nice charm and luring them in to get their guard down. But then at the end of the episode, and I think around the third act, you see that he's not what he seems to be. And this is also something that's implied in the show versus what people might say on YouTube and the internet. And even Greg Nicotero had somewhat said this. If you look at the show with the zombie apocalypse and then you see Woodbury, it's like the very, very good safe haven. And you should immediately get on the ball and not try to screw it up. But with Michonne's character, they were saying that she analyzes everything, yeah, like like the Terminator. And Greg Nicotero said that she immediately smells a rat, like it's too good to be true. But on top of that, I think it's implied that she came across a group of people already who were just as dirty or dirtier, and she wasn't falling for the BS. Yeah, something this, yeah, and she had her guard up. But the funny thing is that she didn't do much snooping around till much later on to see if they're legit. But the funny thing is that people who read the comics, they know who the governor is. But the people who didn't read the comics, that's when they started complaining and saying like, why she's acting like this and this, that, and the other. And this goes back to what I was saying about season 1, how it was hinting about, that those 6 episodes was an emphasis of what the rest of the series was the themes that it was going to tackle. And one of them, of course, is what the dudes at the Vatos home had said about the Vatos home, the Vatos in the nursing home had said about what was it? What did they say? Oh, about how they encounter nasty people. Well, Guillermo has said that, how they encounter nasty people. And then later in that deleted scene in season 2, how, yeah, a group of people showed up and shot everybody execution style and took what they wanted. Yeah, so you can make up a theory yourself and saying that she already encountered people just like that and she miraculously survived. So she's, of course, already hostile. And she's pretty much a day step ahead of Rick transitioning into that, because, of course, at the prison, when they first got there were prisoners there, and immediately Rick, of course, didn't trust them because he's a police officer, and two, what he just experienced, with Shane. If that was his best friend turning on him, you got to know the rest of the world most likely highly is like that. Yeah, so only 2 of the prisoners were actually good. One of them I can't really speak for because the other one, the leader of the prisoners, had killed one of his own because he was slashed in the back by a walker. And then later the fourth one had tried to kill Rick. He set up a trap in the prison and was indirectly why Laurie had died. So it was kind of funny how I remember some people were tripping about that, but I was like, yeah, these people haven't read the comic book. And even before the show came out, it said fight the dead, fear the living. Yeah, they indirectly had got suckered into that. So it was kind of funny. And then once he shot the National Guard, yeah, you definitely should have knew at that point, he's not a good guy. And it was funny because, like the audience, excuse me, when the governor was first introduced on the show, they witnessed that crash site, and then what's his name said that you stabbed the man, but he really was already dead. He already turned, and it was funny how they were hiding in that away, not from the audience, but from the character, and then it was supposed to be it's kind of like a bait and switch, is what Make a Path Presents would say, and toying with you. But like I said, most of the people who read I think more people started reading the comic when season 3 was rolling around, but there were still a couple of people who didn't want to read the book. So, and the funny thing is that certain people don't want to read the book because they like the TV show better, and then you have some that are falling off of it because they're saying that now that the seasons really aren't that interesting. But I was telling them, yeah, trust me, it's going to get interesting. Especially this was before the Saviors had even showed up, and then with the book is at now with the Whisperers. So I was like, trust me, it's going to get much, much, much worse and much more interesting, and it's going to keep you glued to the TV. Trust me, yeah. So it's kind of funny how certain people will argue how the zombie apocalypse would be. They say it wouldn't be like this show, and I was like, I think 80%. Yeah, of this show would be going on. Like I said, the main major difference is that more natural disasters, that tsunami thing we just had. God bless the people in Puerto Rico. But say you got a bunch of zombies on that island, a good third of them probably gonna be wiped out, at least being hit by some debris, and you won't have to worry about them anymore. Yeah, so. And I think there were more. I think people, the dude that told me, he was more saying about that's not what people are gonna do. So that's exactly what people are gonna do. Yeah, if society falls, that's what's gonna happen, and we already see it a little bit in other countries. The only difference is that the people ain't eating each other. Yeah, so you know, I was getting a little bit with the whole North Korea thing. If they throw a coup, and then we really either good people gonna take over the country, or another version of tyranny is gonna happen. So, but I'm not getting too political on that. It's just that when you study psychology and human nature, there's nothing that a person won't do. Yeah, and the guy I was having a conversation with, he seemed like one of those preppy dudes that seemed like he knew everything, but he never had a hard hit a fact of life. And I think if he did, he'll start bitching and complaining. But again, I'm not getting into that whole spiel. But gotta keep it on Walking Dead. But I really like the acting in this one. David Morrissey plays the governor, the main bad guy, and I haven't seen much of his work. Actually, I haven't seen any of his work, until I seen the show, and then I went back, and I think he was in Basic Instinct too, with what's that chick's name? Not Charlize Theron, Sharon Stone, and I think he's on Doctor Who too, but I didn't see him on that. He plays a completely different character on Doctor Who, so yeah. Of course, Michael Rooker's on here. I already told you about his credits. Danai Gurira plays Michonne. I haven't seen this is the first show I've seen her on, but I did see her in All Eyes on Me. She was Tupac's mom, and Lauren Cohen, who plays Maggie, was also in that movie too. So it was nice seeing that whole switch, and of how she portrays certain her acting skill. Let me just say that, because the good thing, what I like about actors is when they don't get typecast, and Michael Rooker at one point kind of was getting typecast. Like, this is what I was saying about at a certain point, he had to be in at least about 3 civil rights movies or civil rights drama movies, and 2 of them he pretty much played a racist bigot. Yeah, and even on here he kind of did, but it wasn't as heavy as he did on Mississippi Burning. But and even Rosewood, he was still somewhat of a bigot on there, but he was still a cop and a sheriff, and he really wasn't that bad. It was the rest of the town, but when the killings were going on, he really wasn't trying to stop it. But again, I'm getting off topic. What else? Scott Wilson. He was introduced in season 2 as Herschel. He's another good actor. He was in Sidney Poitier's In the Heat of the Night. He was very young. I actually saw a clip of him in it. It was he was in a jail cell, and Sidney Poitier, he had a scene with Sidney, so it was pretty nice to see him do that. And I remember he was in the kids movie. I think it was Shiloh, and that's the only one I can really think about. Like I said, who else? Some of the other actors that aren't there, and actresses. Laurie Holden, who plays Andrea, who they completely changed. Well, they changed a story beat of her going to Woodbury in the comic book. That didn't happen. Um, it was kind of funny how they introduced the governor in the comic book. They introduced the governor in the comic book through a helicopter crash, which kind of happened on the show, but again, the situation was kind of different. I think Michonne, Rick, and Glenn, they were out there, and then they came across it, and then that's when the governor's people had saw it. So that's how them two had met. And then off the bat, the governor, which is a sinister dude, he cut off Rick's hand, and it escalated pretty quickly at how nasty the governor was. So it didn't have all that drama in the book, like I said, where it hinted at how dangerous people could get. And even in the book, Herschel was technically the most dangerous person they had crossed, but he had kicked him out. He ain't tried to kill him. He was keeping walkers in his barn, just like how he did on the show. In the book, except in the book, he was more open about it. Yeah, he didn't keep it as a mystery. What else was I about to say? Uh, Sarah Wayne Callies from Prison Break is on the show. Um, and I seen her acting in that, and I immediately recognized her. John Bernthal, who played Shane, he made a cameo in one episode on season 3 as a hallucination. He's doing really good for himself now. He's playing the Punisher now on Daredevil, and he got his own shows on Netflix. And the main character, of course, Andrew Lincoln, Rick Grimes. The only credit that I saw of him after The Walking Dead was Love Actually, and it was a good, decent movie. He kind of played a creepy, stalkerish kind of guy. It wasn't creepy, but well, it wasn't menacing. Let me just say, but he was trying. The girl he liked was married, was the fiance to his best friend, and it was just an awkward situation that they put him in. Only seen him in a couple scenes in that movie. I didn't sit there and watch the whole thing, but he looked very young. He looked like he was in his 30s. Yeah, possibly his early 30s. So far with this season, this is when stuff really starts to get kicked in, and the gears really start going. It was this season had more action in it in most of the episodes, and more zombies that appeared in the episodes versus season 2, where it didn't have that many until like the beginning episode 1, and then at the end of the finale of the premiered finale of season 2 had the most zombies in it. Then of course you got the whale walker, which was very, very cool with how they did that. And another thing, what I want to talk about zombies, each and every single season, they have at least one iconic zombie. So I'm going to say this real quick to get everyone caught up. Season 1, the iconic zombie on there was the bicycle girl. Season 2 was the whale walker, that fat, bloated walker that was trapped in the well. Season 3 was the walker heads in the governor's office thing. Yeah, so I can't remember the season 6 walker. I have to look that up. But if you get the Blu-ray, the special Blu-rays of this, where they have the bust and the disc in them, it's every iconic walker sitting, being like that. So yeah, it was pretty cool. I was trying to think. Except for season 2, they actually used a screwdriver, the walker that Andrea killed in the RV with the screwdriver, and it was pretty cool. But I think the whale walker, most people, that's what I identified that one from that season. And speaking of Andrea, the sad thing about her character, because well, I take that back. In the show, many fans didn't like her or Laurie, but in the comic book, they were much more likable. Because I think on the show, going to Laurie, she was the one that created the rift really between Shane and Rick indirectly. She didn't really tease it in their face, but she was the one that told Shane not to leave, and then that's when Shane had flipped and knew he could kill Rick and get away with it and have Laurie come back to him. So yeah, that was different in the book. After Shane had died early on and Carl was the one that had killed him while he was alive. And then later Rick came back when he figured out, yeah, the zombies you can turn no matter what. Yeah, he had to see for himself with Shane, who was zombified. But in the book, Laurie actually spat on Shane's grave and was really mad at him. Like, or I think she was just pissed at the fact that, you made me an adulteress. Even though it was the same way in the show, he lived a little bit longer, and at the same time, Laurie was the one that came in between them. And I think if Laurie had got killed earlier on, Shane would have tried to kill Rick at all. Yeah. Or better yet, if they would have just left, him and Andrea like they originally wanted to, it wouldn't have become such a big rift, or a big threatening, menacing thing with Shane and Rick. And then with Andrea, she's like a super zombie killer in the book, despite her being dead now. And ironically, she died the same way she did on the show, getting bit in the neck. But Andrea's character is much, much more of a powerhouse in the comic book. Like, she becomes one of the best shooters in the group, and she takes no shit. And she was hooked up with Rick for a while. So, Laurie and Andrea were much more likable in the book. Like, if the fans that only watch the show hated their characters and read the book, they're actually gonna like them a little bit more. Yeah, or they're gonna favor them more, especially Andrea. But some of her traits they had now given to Michonne a little bit, and what's that other one? Sasha. Yeah, so yeah, when she died in the book, I was pretty sad and peeved because, she lived a very long time. But I think in the issue before that, they had teased or hinting that someone else was going to die. So, that's pretty much my review, my little banter of season 3. And I'm now going to watch season 4 and possibly go to bed because I'm yawning like crazy. So, see you guys in season 4. Talk to you guys later. Peace.